Okay, can we get going? Good morning, bon dia. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to welcome you this morning. This will be a session focused around the program Water at the Heart for Climate Action. Actually, the program is entitled, you see there, it's Turning Data into Action. The first results of the Water at the Heart for Climate Action program. Just for the first minute, my name, by the way, is Stefan Ulmbrock. I work for the World Meteorological Organization, where I'm the director for water and hydrology and cryosphere. It is a pleasure to say a few words for framing this session, if I may. Often the COP is criticized. It says there's so many people running around and there's so many other things happening, but there's also exciting things happening. I still remember very well, it was the COP in Sharm el-Sheikh. We were hidden in one of the back rooms. And at that time, it was really there when we discussed this program. And it's fantastic to see now, 3 years later, that we present first results. And so it's really, sometimes these corridor talks, these side discussions really lead to something very tangible. That's what I wanted to say. And the other thing I wanted to say, it was also particular because of the Netherlands, also of their visionary leadership. They were really helping us looking at the at that time newly approved early warnings for all program and said, well, if we really want to make it happen, we have to put some resources behind it. We have to think across all the pillars and not only one of our hobby horses, but really think in an integrated way. And I think it was really the Netherlands. They had this slogan from satellites to sandbags. And I think we made something out of that, something clear. So therefore, it's my pleasure to introduce the first speaker. Next slide, please. And it's a pleasure to introduce Maaike van Ginneken. Ms. van Ginneken is the water envoy of the Netherlands, and the Netherlands, as I said before, have been playing a very critical role to all of this, and it's my pleasure to give the floor over to Maaike, please.
Thank you very much, Stefan, and it's a real pleasure to be here. Early warning for all, and I always say early warning and early action for all, because you need to be warned, but you also need to know what you need to do when you get the warnings. And I think from satellite to sandbag, that's really the beauty of this program, that on the one hand, it is about data and about how do you get data to communities. And on the other hand, it's also about how do you then give communities the capacity to actually do something. For me, the most inspiring example of this is always Bangladesh. We quote it often, no? Where 20 years ago, if there was a big cyclone, often 200, 300,000 people would perish, would die. And now because they get data to communities, but there's also shelters, people know what to do, it's being taught in schools. The number of people that die when there's a cyclone is 10 or 12. I mean, that's one of the most cost-effective ways of saving lives that we're discussing at this COP. So early warning for all and early action for all. And we're very, very excited to be part of this program, Water at the Heart of Climate Action. And I'll pass your nice remarks to the Dutch taxpayers who contribute a little bit to this. We're here at COP30. COP30 is an adaptation COP and COP30 is an implementation COP. So it's good that we're here with this program because it is about adaptation and it's about implementation. And I think if you think about what do we need to do at this COP, of course we need to focus on keeping the 1.5 degrees and we need to do the mitigation. But putting adaptation at the heart of what we're doing, putting water at the heart of what we're doing, putting early warning at the heart of what we're doing is important because climate change is now. Rainfall patterns are changing, temperature is rising. And we can do both at the same time. Think about reducing CO2, about keeping to 1.5 degrees, but also thinking about and working on adaptation. So great to be here, great that we're having this discussion here. And I got really excited when I was reading this dossier, my dossier this morning, because the title said early results. I love these discussions on scoping things, coming together, thinking things out, but I love even more once we can see what's happening on the ground, what are the progress that we're making together, and all that thinking in back rooms and in these kind of sessions actually has results. So at a adaptation COP, at an implementation COP, let's listen to everybody here who shows how within a limited amount of time, when we come together, we actually have real results for real people in the countries that we live in and we work on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. This was a challenge for all the other speakers. So no big conceptual programs, frameworks, which you think about your colleagues. We really want to focus now on the first results of this program. And it's now a pleasure to introduce the first speaker who will present some programs. You might remember that the Early Warning for All initiative has these 4 different pillars. And the first pillar, which is on understanding risks and manage risks and related data and information, is actually led by the UNDRR. Therefore, it is a pleasure to invite Dr. Aminesh Kumar. Aminesh is the head of the UNDRR office in Bonn. And he would invite you to speak about the recent progress in risk knowledge, the recent progress in data to support risk-informed decision-making and collaboration. Over to you, Aminesh.
Thank you, Stefan. And very good morning to you. It's very nice to see that the temperatures are cooling down on this side of the campus. I hope it will also have a very positive impact on the negotiations and everything. So it's a very good pleasure, and very nice to hear earlier that the discussions, and I was part of that initial corridor discussion in COP27 in the lounge. I remember we had a small table sitting around discussing and conceptualizing this whole discussion. I have a few hats. Being the head of the Bonn office, I'm the lead for climate and data portfolios of the organization. One of my hats is also the lead for monitoring and evaluation of early warnings for all, which I co-lead with my counterpart, Asia from WMO. And hence, I keep a balcony view of everything that happens in early warnings for all. And Water at the Heart is one of the shining examples of how things are progressing. I often call the Water at the Heart as the catalyst for early warnings for all. Now, I'll start by giving us a few glimpses. I don't have a presentation, but just a bit of a glimpse on the 2025 edition of the Global Status Report on Early Warning Systems that was launched at a high-level event just yesterday across on this side. And one of the key findings, and I serve as the lead author of that report, so the 4th edition has been launched. 60% of the world has officially reported the existence of early warning system. That's just a media consumption headline figure. But for me, the real story for this side, this year's report, was there was a 45% increase in the comprehensiveness score of early warning system. Now, what's comprehensiveness score? Stefan mentioned that early warnings for all rests on 4 pillars. And for each of these 4 pillars, countries self-assess their progress. And we combine these 4 scores to come up with 1 score per country for their early warning system. The focus is here on the system. We have found that the countries which have more comprehensive early warning systems have 6 times lower mortality than the countries that have less comprehensive scores. And this is where we really feel that this increase in comprehensiveness score is a real story that the early warnings for all is talking about. One of the things we have been highlighting in this year's report, as was the case in the previous year's report as well, is Water at the Heart. It forms a featured section in the report as well. We really feel that water being the key hazard, 90% of the disasters in the world are caused because of water-related hazards. We really feel that if we take care of the water-related hazards, associated data systems, associated early warning systems, we can really manage the whole resilience building process in a much more prudent way. I will focus now on the risk knowledge parts of Water at the Heart. And before that, I will just put a footnote here. At the Water Summit, the UN Water Summit 2.5 years ago, we had made a commitment as UNDRR that 100 countries in the world will have access to localized data on water-related disasters. And this for us is a big, big commitment. And we are moving very, very ambitiously, but realistically on this process. We have already launched a system which is called Delta Resilience. Delta stands for Disaster and Hazardous Event Loss and Damage Tracking and Analysis, a disaster tracking system to be short. This is already rolled out over the last few years. in a system called Disinventar. More than 100 countries have been using it, but Delta Resilience takes it forward to a much more disaggregated way, to the more localized scales, and has much better analytics features. One of the key analytical features is the combination of combining disaster impact data, which we had been doing so far, with the hazardous event data that the meteorological offices collect in their respective countries. And this is backed by the Cataloging of Hazardous Events, CHE model, that the WMO Congress approved in 2019. So the new system integrates the hazardous event cataloging system and the disaster impact monitoring system into one integrated model. What does this mean for early warning system? This means that we don't only have now information on the impact of disasters and the historical impact of disasters, but also the hazardous events that have caused it. So it extends the data value chain. And because it extends the data value chain, the early warning systems can become much more strong than it used to be. I'm also very happy to share some progress at the country level. In Ethiopia, for example, and we'll hear more later on, we have been, and I was in Ethiopia 2006 to 2012, so I consider myself half Ethiopian, Wandam. But we had established a risk baseline system then, and now Water at the Heart has taken it forward through disaster tracking system, through cataloging the disaster impact at the most localized scales. And this is then combined with the localized risk profiles in the country, again, to get a full information of what we have lost, what we are losing, what we may lose in the future. And the combination of these three tracks of data really provides a very good information for early warning. In South Sudan, we have very good examples of how multi-stakeholder collaboration is working for pre-season planning. And this, again, gives a very good glimpse of the overall system. I'll end by bringing all of us to the venue here, COP30. And it was already mentioned earlier by Mike. This is an adaptation COP. One of the hats I also wear is an expert member of the Global Goal and Adaptation Indicator Development System. So I'm developing indicators. The first target, the first thematic target of GGA is water. And the first adaptation cycle target is early warning system. A combination of 9A and 10A is water for early warning systems. And the GGA does provide the basis to do so. We have submitted 100 indicators, 10 under water, 10 under early warning systems. I hope better sense prevails and we'll have a very nice outcome. But from Water at the Heart side, I guess the countries, capacities are being developed, data is being prepared. So we are all set to roll out GGA indicators as soon as they're adopted. So that is the way to go moving forward, but looking forward to more discussion on this very important topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aminesh. We hope that your voice is heard in the room where they're negotiating the GGA at this very moment. The next speaker, please. Mr. Amiable, I'm not sure, I have not seen him. He is the Director General of the Meteorological Service in Rwanda. And just a couple of months ago, they started, if he's not, we wait, maybe he's still coming in, or our colleague Marcus from SOF is coming there. Next speaker, please. Otherwise, I'm for sure that Dr. Bomb Alex Ogwang is unfortunately not here. We received this morning an email from him. They're still in Sao Paulo, so there's a travel hiccup with him. However, he asked me to share just a few insights from him. Bob would be the speaker on the second pillar, which was focused on the satellites observations modeling part of the things. And that's a pillar that is led by WMO. Bob developed together with our colleague Ramesh Tripathi, who is online at the moment, a couple of speaking points which I wanted to share with you. In general, Dr. Ongwang is at the Ministry of Water and Environment in Uganda, and they are particularly involved in strengthening the hydrological monitoring, improving impact-based forecasting, and also just improving early warning services when it comes to better data collection, including a centralized database. So there's some training going on at the moment to support bringing all the data together in a single database. Uganda is also heavily involved in supporting this interoperable visualization platform. I said it in another event speaking earlier this week, and when we started the program, we looked how many platforms and tools we have already in East Africa, and we counted more than 20 different platforms and tools related to early warning and data collection. And when I was working as professor in the Netherlands, I had almost every single year a student from Ethiopia who wanted to apply yet another hydrological model. So sometimes it is not so important to yet another one, but also really much build on what is there, integrate what is there, bring this together. And that's what is happening at the moment in the interoperable visualization platform. So to bring all the data together, make it accessible to users. And that is built on the East African Hazard Watch platform which is run by ICBAC. And we hope in June to have some first results from that to share. Uganda is also heavily involved in the hydrological status and outlook system, and certain products are under development for the 5 different countries in East Africa. Let me close with some reflections which he had. And I think that it is interesting because we are here to share first results. And he felt, so I'm really quoting from his speaking points, that every pillar is crucial in early warning, and to make it a success, also Aminash made that point, we have to think in a system approach, and therefore it's really important to equally support all the pillars. So just strengthening one does not necessarily lead to better action. Second point on technological advancements. At the moment, there's a discussion going on also using more artificial intelligence for meteorological and hydrological forecasts, and to get this quicker, faster to the cell phones also of many people in the region. And that is also something which Bob feels is worth pursuing. Third, about synergies and alignment. There's not only 20 plus different models and platforms in East Africa, there's also a number of different projects from different donors. And it's super important to align and not reinventing the wheel and really look at the complementarity. And from Uganda's side, I would like to share that they realize the important synergies and also with different regional and national partners, and feel this is particularly complementary to the cruise projects in East Africa. Cruise stands for consortium, what is it? A multi-hazard early warning system. Climate risk and early warning systems. It's too early for somebody with jet lag here. Thank you, Vincent. And finally, his thought from Bob was about sustainability, and he feels to not have a project for 4 or 5 years and do something interesting and then continue with an edge project and something else. The sustainability is so critically, and that can only be guaranteed if all the key stakeholders, including the government, are involved from day one and also carry out the project implementation in a truly co-design, co-development program. These were his reflections. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. I think he's at the moment still in Sao Paulo. And then it's now a pleasure to invite the Deputy Secretary General from the Ethiopian Red Cross, and it's a distinct pleasure to invite Diris Desibelev. Diris, please, over to you.
Thanks so much. Good morning again, and it's my pleasure to be here to share practical, actions we work with the community. As with Water Alert for Climate Action, we are leading the pillar 4 on anticipatory action and locally lead adaptation. But these 4 or 5 pillars of the project is really interconnected and interrelated, and partners who are leading the pillars are highly complementary. And I would like to acknowledge and appreciate the partnership, the meaningful partnership we have with WMO, UNDRR, SOF, and others, local actors. So the Ethiopian Red Cross Society is, using risk data presented by the government into action. That's really an important area. Of course, the implementation and the piloting was made in Somali region, where too little water and also too much water, both are risky for the community in Somali region. And we piloted this project in consultation with local government, local authorities, and also with national counterparts and consortium members. And that consultation is really important to find out, where to invest these limited resources for impactful, outcome. So we decided together with consortium members and the government to implement in Harish and Kalafo district of in Somali region. That's one of the steps we make. But Somali region in general is highly hit by, layers of drivers, layers of factors, on mainly because of lack of water and having many water as well, affecting or driving towards drought and flood as well. Following the selection of the area, we conducted EVCA. I mean, EVCA is the Enhanced Vulnerability Capacity Assessment, which is a tool we used across the movement, Red Crescent movement, as a tool for planning and to engage communities to empower themselves, assess risks, assess their capacities, what's available, and transform that into action. So we use that tool to really engage the community on the planning process. So once that EVCA is done, we step into local adaptation measures. Degradation, of course, also is the tree plantation. Billions of trees are with the government initiative as planted. Of course, the Red Cross is the pioneer in the country. Since my childhood, I was growing, planting trees with the Red Cross when I was in the school, the elementary school. And that legacy still exists. There are quite big plates of lands called with Red Cross trees, Red Cross forests. And we continue that by engaging the community. So, the tree planting is one of the area we work on, rangeland, restoration, especially in Somalia, which is highly vulnerable to erosion. And we work for the Netherlands Red Cross and others supporting on restoration of the environment as well in Somalia region. The other point is really on anticipatory action. How early warning is linked to early action is really important. The Red Cross is trying to localize this linkage to make sure locally actions are informed by evidences and really participatory by communities. And we are always there to support, to make sure early warning information is linked to the local planning for local action. Maybe the final remark is related to, our presence there is really to explore the potential from the community. Communities, we believe, has the capacity and the potential to adopt this one if we provide the necessary and the right skills and the necessary resources there. I mean, we are beyond service providers. We really engage in policy making. I mean, advising the government. We are part of the National Advisory Council led by the Prime Minister. So we have more space, I mean, to play as a national actor toward shaping how, anticipatory action or adoption can be implemented in highly vulnerable areas. Of course, linking, it's important to link science with practice. Linking evidence with local action is really important. I mean, the practice is there, but that should be reinforced by science and evidences. That's one of the important link. And finally, I would like to, acknowledge again the partnership we have with the consortium, which is very much meaningful. We are just at the third year. We'll go together much more in the future, and we look forward to have joint, achievements in the future. And thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Good. Mr. Amiable from Rwanda didn't arrive yet, I believe. Okay, then we are ready for the Q&A, for discussion with questions and answers. Panelists, speakers, would you mind to come to the front and see if we have some questions from the audience? And the speaker from the Netherlands, you had to rush to the next event. Good. It's now the time for you to ask some questions, and they're highly competent people, so feel free to also ask questions outside their own pillar, if I may say so. Please, there's 2 questions in the back, please.
Thank you so much. And it's really exciting indeed to see this moving forward. I was also one of those people in that less sweaty back room in Sharm el Sheikh at the COP, and it's fantastic to see this happen. I wanted to hear maybe a little bit, perhaps more from Diris and Stefan on what does this look like at country level, linking the pillars, both some of the successes and any potential challenges we have. And Animesh, of course, if you have any specific examples of Ethiopia, what's been the biggest achievement of the partnership and working together across all 4 pillars, and what might have been a challenge? Thanks.
So the progress on country level. So maybe note a question. I think that went to all 3 of us, this question, and all of us. Good. And next question, we collect one more and then we answer.
Perfect. Thanks so much to all of the speakers for sharing the kind of full spectrum of the action and how this all connects. My question's quite complimentary, and it's more on the policy side, and in particular to Animesh. Thank you for making the linkage to the negotiations that are happening here, and to your work and all of the experts who have got this narrowed down to 100 indicators. It's been quite the task this year, and I think for many of us who are practitioners, it was very exciting to see the final synthesis report. You had mentioned about the kind of 9A, 10A and the interconnection. I was wondering if you might unpack that a little bit more, especially for maybe colleagues who may be here, and this is a relatively, we're still waiting on the final outcome, right? Hopefully at this COP. Just what would your advice be to many of us here for the first year? Fingers crossed for a kind of a good conclusion at this COP, but how we support then that rapid movement from the kind of global policy framework into implementation. The indicators we're seeing at the minute really enable that, but would love just for some of your advice and thoughts around that. Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe we go to the answers now. I think, should we start with the second question? Is that fine? On the indicators, and that's a question direct for Aminesh, please.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan, and thanks, Mary, as well for the question. We have really done a good work, I would say, patting ourselves at the back, going down from the initial compilation of 10,000 indicators to 490 in the middle of this year, and then to 100 at the end of the September. Um, these indicators, we have followed a very logical process to break down each target into specific components, and then developing indicators using existing matrix where available to come out with the 100 indicators. So it's a very logical process. Now, I would just keep aside the political aspects of it and leave it to the wisdom of the parties. But what I would say is two things. One, that the GGA indicator development process has already created a momentum. Whether they get adopted or not adopted, parties are using it. I would really encourage you, if you haven't done so, to read the NDC synthesis report that was released just a week before the COP started. And you will see that there are 62% of the parties who submitted their NDCs have used the adaptation matrix in their BTRs, in their reporting processes. And many of them have actually used the indicators from the compilation that we have already done. There has been a 23% increase in terms of reporting on adaptation itself in NDCs compared to how it used to be earlier. So I would say that the momentum on adaptation has already been developed. And assuming that a sizable number of these indicators get adopted, the first thing that we will need to do is to ensure that the countries have the capacity to start collecting the data if they're not doing it, and if they're doing it, reporting it coherently. And that requires a lot of capacity. Adopting the indicators is just the beginning of a process. The real work begins at the country level to enhance the data capacities to be able to report, because if that doesn't happen, indicators remain indicators. I'll give a very quick example. 10 years back, when the Sendai framework was adopted, and then the indicators of Sendai framework were adopted 2 years later. In between, we had done a readiness of indicators. So for each of the 38 indicators, we went through a readiness process to see how ready countries are to report on these indicators. We found that, and an analysis of across 87 countries, we found that the indicators for which countries said in 2015 they were not ready then are the least reported indicators in 2025. And 10 years have gone. That just goes on to show that if the countries do not have the capacity, they will not report it. And hence, national capacity building is a key mechanism to ensure accountability. So my mantra moving forward in the next 1 year is to strengthen the data ecosystem in the countries so that the accountability mechanisms can be further strengthened. I'll very tangentially also touch on Nini's question as well. I'm sure that Diris will deep dive further in Ethiopia. But I must say that Ethiopia has a very good coordination mechanism. It is called something else now, but when I used to work there 15 years ago, it was called as the Disaster Risk Management Technical Working Group. It used to meet every second Thursday of a month in the disaster risk management and food security sector, now called as the Disaster Risk Management Commission. And this used to serve as the coordination mechanism. It used to start by the Ethiopian Meteorological Agency, EMA, presenting the short-term and medium-term weather forecast to all the sectoral ministries, and each of the sectoral ministry then saying, using this information, what can they do? So the coordination mechanism has been there for the last 15, 20 years. And I'm sure that this, with the establishment of the commission and the shifting of this institution, then it was in the Ministry of Agriculture, now in the office of the Prime Minister, the coordination is being further strengthened for better sharing of information to strengthen early warning system. But I think I'm stepping into your shoes now, so I'll pass over to you.
Thanks so much. You take part of the coordination mechanism. The partnership we have with pillar leaders is really progressing well so far, as they are also closely working with the Ethiopian Disaster Risk Commission, where that's the government wing responsible to manage this one. The Red Cross take existing coordination platforms. We have represented more than 20 coordination platforms in the country at national level. And with EDRMC, with the Ethiopian Met Agency, we have other projects as well that can tap into this project to strengthen the coordination platform. And with that one, we see the complementarity across the pillars in terms of, sharing risk knowledge, which is UNDRR is much more, and the governance issue on water management and the monitoring aspect. And those, if those information is not available, I mean, our adaptation will not work. So it is really interconnected, and probably in the future we will work more on data, quality issue. Otherwise, the coordination we have regular, meetings, regular update sessions specific to this program in the country. That gives us a lot in terms of checking the progress and what works well and what is not, and any possible assistance. And the federation is there to support us whenever the adoption relation in relation to that pillar is concerned. So I can see the governance aspect is working well, and we will roll out or scale into the community, where now the EDRMC is endorsed a new proclamation which decentralized DRM activities down to the district level. And that is where the Red Cross is coming in front to be part of the Minister of the Council for DRM. And that arrangement will work down to the community. And I think the partnership is really meaningful for us. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. If I might add to that, as a representative of Pillar 2, if I may say so, what's happening on country level, particularly, unfortunately, our colleague from the Director General of the Rwandan Med Service isn't here today, but recently what happened is that investments took place to set up so-called G-bond stations from the Global Basic Observation Network. They were established. They are emitting now. They're already globally shared. So it's really, that's something that very concrete happened because of the investment of water at the heart. And in the field of hydrology, in all the 5 countries involved, there are various investments at the moment implemented in better hydrometry, so better observations for rehabilitating discharge stations, like stream flow stations, or setting up new ones. And there's also training happening in the better data management. Often data is there, but it's not properly shared, or wrong mandates, formats, etc. So to have centralized databases that are communicating between the countries, if the countries allow. But technically, at least for the country, this is happening at the very moment. Yeah, good. Other questions from the audience? There's 2 more questions. My colleague Rita brings the microphone over.
Thank you very much for your insights. We often hear about the value of going from early warning to early action, and how trust, but also knowing what to do when the warning comes, is our key elements. And I wondered if you could reflect on how the different pillars and actors in them can build both the trust in the warnings and the know-how for the people receiving them. Thank you.
Okay, we take one more question. Maybe there was a question for Diris.
Hello, my name is Yesterday Kazim, and I'm from the International Actuarial Association. My interest in this is from a data point of view in relation to the insurance industry. I think it's been fantastic, the amount of work being done on data. My question is it being shared, and how is it being disseminated to the wider financial industry in order to reduce the cost of insurance? Because if we are warned early enough, we can put risk mitigants in place, we can reduce the cost of insurance. So I just wanted to check from the panel how much involvement and how much collaboration there is.
Thank you. Okay, good. So maybe we take it one by one. Who would like to take the first question? You would like to start? Okay.
Thanks so much for, the importance of trust and the linkage between early warning and early action at community level. As a national actor, we we believe we have much more trust in the community, given this national organization is part of the community. And in terms of information sharing to the community, and in terms of access, I mean, availing the right data on the right time is quite important to be trusted. And yeah, our action is really community-based, community-informed, that we take the community evidence from the community and engage them in the co-creation to make sure they own that plan of action, and avail ourselves for technical and financial support if required, and that also contribute a lot in terms of enhancing trust among the communities. So the information is really driven from national and international platforms, but shared through all platforms, and that's one of the point. But in terms of data sharing, maybe if I may, I mean, we are more in the local context, the community level, but it's really important to avail those risk data. I mean, we have district level risk profiling, as highlighted before, and that district level risk profiling is regularly captured and inform local plans, local resource allocation. But the private sector, the financial sector is coming on board to access those data, which is also related to mitigating damage and loss aspect. So it's really important, not just at local level, maybe at regional and global level. How these sectors can access those data is really important.
I'll continue from there and perhaps touch on both the questions very briefly. In fact, thanks for bringing up the disaster risk profiling, Verida disaster risk profiling program of Ethiopia, because it remains very close to my heart. I was the program manager for that program from 2008 to 2012. And the first district that we had profiled was Wuchale district in North Shiva zone in Amhara, in Oromia. And it brings us very close to your question, because people went with the understanding, we wanted to understand what are the risks present at the most localized scales in Ethiopia, the Kebele level. And this was one of the Veridas which fell under Productive Safety Net Program, which is a drought-centric safety net program. When we went there, actually, we found, of course, drought is there, pervasive. But when we asked the communities, what are the risks you face on a regular basis, drought did not feature in their top 5 hazards. Or closer. So drought did not feature in their top 5 hazards, the risks that they faced. They said the top risk is sheep dying because of water logging in that region. Because the topography of that vereda is such that the water logs and then the sheep eat wet grass. Wet grass causes bloating in the sheep and they die. That is the biggest risk. Now, the early warning system was not attuned to this very risk that the communities face. Early warning systems were all about droughts, which is water loss, for example. And that brings us to the key point of your question. How are we issuing the risks? How are we understanding the risk? And then how are we issuing the warnings based on that? We will need to acknowledge that there is a cognitive bias of the communities, and that bias is both positive and negative. The positive side is that they will react to what they see. But that what they see also is nurtured by the changing climate projections and the changing hazards that they feel. So the key point here would be to ensure that the community engagement is ensured, because the community, if they're not ensured, if it's a top-down approach, they will not act on that warning. The flip side of this whole thing is also early warnings often create a false sense of security. Because if they're not engaged well, they will feel, okay, the authorities are there to take care of us. We don't have to do anything. And perhaps this is what happened in 2021 floods in Germany, where everyone felt complacency. We are all safe because we are in a developed country. That was my first week in that country when I moved to Bonn. I did not know what to do when the sirens went off at 9 o'clock at night and my house was flooded in Bonn. So If we are not engaged in the process of risk understanding, the communities will not respond to the early warning. And that is what builds up the trust of the communities in the early warning. Second point, the second question that was raised, insurance industry. So we are all, and you know perhaps much more than I do, that the cost of insurance is a function of amount of risk which is transferred. And the amount of risk to be transferred is a function of the residual risk. And if it is about residual risk, the more risk we don't prevent, the more risk we transfer. The more risk we transfer, higher is the cost of insurance. Higher is the cost of insurance, lower are the takers. And if lower are the takers, cost further rises. It's a vicious circle we are moving around. What we have not been able to do successfully to break this circle is to bring together the people who are responsible for prevention of risks and those who are responsible for responding to the risks. That has not happened. So for example, real estate, housing construction industry is a very classical example. It is in the interest of the real estate not to share the risk, not to let the buyers know of the risk that they are taking by buying that property. And when the buyer buys the property, then they realize this is not robust enough. Let's insure this house. Now, that's where the data becomes very important. If the right data is present, then I would know that in this area, the risks are earthquake and flood. The flood has 20-year return period or 100-year return period. Hence, this is the risk I'm taking. And the earthquake, if we are in the 5 Richter scale zone, earthquake of 7 may not be a possibility, but 6 may be a possibility. With that information, I can ensure that I can invest a bit more into the infrastructure, making it a bit more robust, reducing the residual risk and transferring that risk to the insurance industry. This linkage, unfortunately, is not happening. And I guess both us as development humanitarian actors and the insurance industry are to blame. Our data systems are siloed. Our data system collected from the governments and collected by us are in the public domain. The actuarial sciences data are not in the public domain. They are available only at the global scale through Sigma and Munich Re reports. If we can share our data better, I guess we can have our resilience policies much more aligned, and prevention and risk transfer can be better aligned, and only then the industry starts working better. It's something which we can really explore to co-benefit. Unfortunately, we have much more to do on this as of now.
Super. Thank you so much. We have time for one more. Otherwise, from WMO side, I can add that we very much into data sharing and being as open as we can, but it's the owner of the data are the countries. So we do all the technical work to support central storage, archiving, and shareability of the data. But the access is, of course, down to the country level. But we try as much as possible to facilitate that process. Is there one final question? If not, it's good because the next session will start at 10:30. If I'm no, it was moved to 11, which is also on the data and information. I would like to thank particularly all the speakers. We maybe give them an extra hand. And colleagues, I think what we saw here, sometimes these background talks, as I said at the beginning of the session, you know, the corridor talks at the COP can really lead to very tangible projects and to concrete results. This was a testimonial of that today. So big thank you and have a good COP. Thank you. You have the microphone? No, no, there's no. Hi, Stefan, I'm nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Should we do a picture? Should we do a picture? Yeah. Can we have you for a picture? Yes. Nini, you should be on the picture.